Hey, thanks everyone for joining. Astrologer and my friend Rok Koritnik has joined me to talk about his new book that got published in around less than a month ago. So it's called, yeah. That's, can you just make it a little bit closer to the screen so that everyone can see better? Yeah, it's I also have it, but my green screen is preventing. So it's called at the turning of years, a book on solar forecasting. Obviously, Rok Koritnik has written this book, and Anthony Lewis has written the foreword.
Right.
So I don't think we need um better endorsement for the book. So that goes without saying. So thanks so much for joining, and thanks for the copy of the book. It looks beautiful, and
Thanks.
I should say that I had the good fortune of reading the book even before it was published. So I consider myself one of those privileged readers, not leaders. So it's a so yeah. I think I forgot the date of the publishing, but the book was
Even
published
I
on
forgot
13th.
it.
Yeah, no, it was published on 13th April 2022. Uh, so before we get into the specifics and the actual talk, I just want to share the screen with the Amazon page so that people
Oh, yeah, sure.
whoever want to kind of have a look at the book or even purchase it, which is something that I would certainly recommend, should see this. So this is the Amazon page. Um, at
Yeah.
the turning of years, a book on solar forecasting. This is, I think, for now there is both paperback and Kindle, but there is no hard copy. So paperback is 24.95 USD, while Kindle version is 12.95 USD, and this is the cover of the book, so obviously it looks very good. So I think Rok also shared on his Facebook page and took some of the opinions and polls of many other astrologers on social media as well. So this is the paperback version, I think.
Hmm.
So Anthony Lewis has written the forward. So um, and your website is rokkoritnikastrologer.com.
Not com, right.
So we can also put that in the description page. So one of the most important things is that Rok Koritnik has designed the cover of the book by himself, uh, and
True.
so everything is. So this is the invocation of the sun god,
Mm.
and Anthony's forward is here. So there is a portion of the book that a very minimal portion of the book that everyone can read here, which might give a reasonable insight into what the book is. Anthony Lewis's forward kind of really projects what the book is. So it's a very masterful forward, um,
Yeah. I'm so happy
and
that he wrote it, and I
yeah.
really appreciate it because basically he wrote a really great introduction to the book.
Yeah. So as the name suggests, this book is basically on annual forecasting methods, which includes uh, annual profection and solar returns, along with a few other techniques as well. So and there are very few books that kind of cover the traditional methods of solar returns, which includes annual profections as well. So this is one of the very unique books that is available in the community today. So uh, yeah, maybe I think it's time to stop the sharing, right?
Yeah, it's cool.
So, right. So the book actually is, I have published, uh, you know, bi-monthly before, and I also published a book. So I
Hmm.
have this reasonable insight on how a book looks. So the book is actually uh, 6 into 9, which is a regular size of the
Hmm.
book, and the the color of the cover is very, it's very catchy, and
Mm.
It's very catchy. So it's very simple, but it looks very beautiful. And uh, unlike many astrologers who choose white papers, you have chosen cream,
Cream, yeah.
which is quite unique for an astrology
Hmm.
book. And the I don't know what is the spacing that you have used, but it's very easy on the eye, and it's neither it is very spacious, nor it is very clumsy.
Condensed.
Yeah, so
Hmm.
it's not, so it's very perfect. I think you have used
Yeah,
Palatino
I know.
linotype, as you mentioned.
Yeah, I was
uh,
worried a little bit, that the spacing might be a bit too much. But then I
no,
got the feedback from all the readers that it's
right.
actually very nice. And also, um, my wife also commented that it's very readable because she doesn't like when the text is all, packed together.
Yeah,
Um,
so especially it's very easy on the eye because this book also consists of so many diagrams, the charts.
mhm.
uh, and when a book is packed with examples, it's obvious that it consists of so many images. And when you look at the the body of the text, I mean the normal text along with the diagram, that's when the
Mhm.
actual readability gets exposed, and it's really good. So,
Well, thank you.
and the gutter space is also really reasonable. So if I open the book, I think it's so the gutter space is really good. So you don't have to really struggle when you actually
Mhm.
get into the center portions of the book. So you can easily read without much difficulty. So yeah, so everything is very good, and the only thing is we need to now talk about the book. So before getting into it, so let's talk about why the book itself.
Why? Yeah. Um, there were actually many reasons why I wrote this book. Well, the first one was an obvious one because I was searching for quite a few years. I was searching for an effective predictive method that would not be overly complicated and that could be easily done without the help of any kind of software. So all you need is just your natal chart and the solar return chart, and then the rest of it you can all just do by hand or even in your mind. So, and to a large degree, I was inspired by Indian astrologers,
Ah,
because I've seen, how much stuff they do without having any kind of dasha written, or they just look at the chart and they just tell you stuff without having software.
yeah,
Because
that's
that
right.
was my experience in India. The first astrologer I've been to had my chart written on a piece of paper.
Right,
So he was not able to just, go and, oh, now I will look at this divisional chart and now I will look at this dasha. He just had the chart and that was it.
right,
So that was, I mean, my ascendant lord is together with Rahu. So I'm inclined to find shortcuts, I want quick results. So,
right,
and this was my attempt, because I've been studying solar returns on and off for years, and I was dissatisfied with what I've learned because the techniques just didn't give me um, enough accuracy, a repeatable success, so to say.
right.
Um, and then I started to experiment, and I actually first I went far back to study how Dorotheus did it, because that's the first case
All right,
of solar returns, the first method that we know. And then I studied how Valens did it. Um, I also studied before that. I studied the Tajika uh, Jyotisha,
mm,
so which is like mix of Indian and Persian astrology that's practiced in India. And eventually I just wanted to simplify and do away with stuff that was just too complex and it didn't work,
Right.
So my aim was to create kind of a distilled approach to reading solar returns.
Right.
So that was one thing. Because I tested many different timing methods, I just had this pool of charts, marriages and childbirth,
right.
which are very objective events. It's not something subjective, so we can really test it. And to my surprise, annual profections together with solar returns were incredibly powerful, incredibly accurate, even though they are arguably much simpler than other methods that I've tested.
Sure. So that's great. I think most of us kind of end up writing a book for various reasons, but I think ultimately this is one of those reasons, invariably. So
yeah.
right.
Then another. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
No, just go ahead.
Yeah, and another reason was that at that time I've been in a very difficult period of my life. Till now, it was the most difficult. I was in a 6th house profection year,
Right.
where I have Mars in Cancer. So it was, and Mars also rules my midheaven, and I found myself in this confusion of where to go in my life. Basically, you could say a midlife crisis.
Right.
And it really struck me hard. And I was in this severe depression for months. And I realized that, okay, if I don't, because basically my whole system started to use all my creative potential to solve this existential problem, And I realized that if I don't release this creative energy of mine and start using it productively as I was used to, I will probably die, So this was the first thing that I started to work on. I just went really back into astrology and studied a few charts and wanted to find a way how to time stuff within a year, because that was something that I've been trying before. And I said, okay, let's do this. I need to focus my mind on something creative. And then I thought, okay, now I have some material. Maybe I will write a few articles on this. But then I was just proceeding with it, and it was soon it was obvious that it's going to be a book. And then I just decided to write at least 1 hour a day.
Right.
And it was a very important thing for me, because through this, and also I then started to create music again. And through this, I managed to escape, to defeat depression. And this is also, for this reason, I also chose at the end, because I had this poll on Facebook, I was choosing between this bluish cover
Reddish.
or a reddish. And it was, most were like, yeah, red for the sun, it's fiery. And I also, yeah, red is nice. But at the end, I chose the blue one, which was also the first design that I did, because it's related to the story of creation from Egyptian culture, and also from Indian, because the story is very similar. And it's also connected in Egypt even more. It's connected with the sun, which, the techniques in this book are
Right.
entirely solar. Um, so this is why I choose the blue, because Brahma, the creator in Indian scriptures, he appears in the middle of ocean,
Right.
born in the lotus flower that grows from Vishnu's navel.
Yeah.
And in Egypt, Atum, the creator, is born in the middle of the ocean on a small island, um, in the lotus flower. Um, and out of ecstasy, um, Atum creates light, which comes from his right eye, which is the sun. And this
Right.
is why I use the eye of
Yeah.
Ra as a symbol
Exactly.
for the sun.
Sure.
And the blue is because it was in the middle of ocean. And the color blue, we also say, if someone's sad, oh, you're blue.
Right.
So it's light emerging from darkness, and dispelling this tamas,
Okay. So you kind of answered the question that I had.
Uh-huh.
So about the cover of the book. So that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. And Anthony Lewis.
Oh,
Uh,
Anthony.
so just, I don't want to say anything. Just Anthony
Yeah.
Lewis.
Yeah. Anthony was a part of this, because first of all, he gave me some useful guidance um, when I was in this period. And also, I was always inspired by his blog, because he was always so open, trying new things, different things. He likes to experiment. And also, kind of a friendship developed between the two of us. And I just thought, if I will ask someone to write a foreword, I would
It would
ask
be
him, because I really respect him.
right. Sure. That's pretty much the reason why I also requested him to write the forward for my book.
Hmm.
So we have one thing in common,
Right.
where Anthony Lewis wrote forward for our books. So great. And then from there, construction of the book. So deciding to write a book is one thing, and framing the book
Yeah.
itself is entirely different. And
Hmm.
I kind of noticed that there is, again, I kind of find common ground between us, because it's more or less like how I might actually do it, or probably at least think. So first, you kind of describe in the first chapter about the essential concepts, which includes sect, angular strength, reception, the 12th parts or dodecatomoria, the
Hmm.
lords, and dignity. So these are the the fundamental basis which we use
Hmm.
to read the charts. So
Yeah.
although this book is not intended to be a um, you know very elementary or entry level book, this is certainly an intermediate book. I don't want to kind of shut the entry level people, because solar returns is a technique that you can immediately get into.
Hmm.
So you anyone can basically read this book, there is no doubt about it, but you should at least know the
The very
this idea,
basics.
yeah, the very
Yeah.
basics, and like planet science, house and aspects.
Yeah.
So the first chapter kind of adds a little more value, and brings more concreteness to the learning of newbie astrologer. So
Hmm.
I think it's a very important chapter, and it kind of sets the ground very early. And I think preface itself sets the ground very early, uh,
Hmm.
but chapter one is kind of laying a very solid foundation, and you don't waste much time, and you immediately get into annual profections.
Yes. I mean, I was a little bit in a dilemma, you know. I knew that I have to introduce certain uh, ideas that are specific to Hellenistic tradition,
Right.
um, well, I will not say specific, but they are important because we find sect also in Indian tradition and Persian. But I just wanted, the reader to know about this, so I introduced them briefly as I could, without leaving, the important stuff out. Um, but I was in a dilemma whether I was too brief.
Right.
If I should write more, but I said, okay, no, but that would not be the point. The point of this book is in the techniques. So I will just introduce um, as just quickly, concisely, these concepts. And then I want to focus on the practical application.
Right. So, and the first chapter is really very important, followed
Mm.
by annual profections. But I just want to kind of go back to the first chapter before moving on. Um, Sect is okay, angular strength is okay, reception is okay, the lots and dignities, everything is
Hmm.
fine. But you kind of added this another layer of 12th parts. I knew you were very
Uh-huh.
fond of 12th parts.
Mm.
And another thing is like, I'm also very fond of 12th parts. So the anyone if anyone uses the 12th parts, I'm really intrigued. But I think we already did some work. I'm not sure whether we did or something, but I think we spoke a lot about 12th parts. And I expecting the 12th parts in your book was not a big surprise as far as I'm
Hmm.
concerned. But maybe it's not a regular thing for so many people. So that is where you kind of hit the nail in terms of being very hardcore traditionalist,
Hmm.
at least in terms of framing the book. So I felt very happy when I saw your usage of 12th parts in the book. So did you want to kind of add about, because there is not really any modern material that's written by any modern practitioner or writer about the 12th
Right.
parts. So everything we had is largely on Formicus or other Indian astrologers probably.
Yeah,
So yeah. So
that's
how
true.
did you
In
kind of
India,
come
yeah,
about?
we can read, especially if you write, if you search for Dwadasamsha
Mm,
in Google, you will find articles about it. So
yeah,
the Indians, they write about it, they use it, but in the West, although there is the use of the 12 parts is
uh,
documented, uh, I think it's underutilized
right, exactly.
because also um, we kind of don't know what exactly to do with them, what to use them for, how to use them. So this is one area that I'm still working on and researching and gathering material. Basically, I want to just gather as much information about the 12 parts from all traditions together and eventually test all the
Right.
techniques that we know. But in this book, I used more or less the Hellenistic approach
Yeah,
or the Persian approach when you calculate the 12 parts and place them around the main chart
sure.
and use them as additional hidden positions.
Exactly. So that's precisely what Maureenus does for
Mhm.
you. So that is one thing. And then you go on to talk about annual perfections. So, but I think there are a few books that talk about perfections, but monthly perfections and bringing it with a very practical orientation is again very new. So,
Mhm.
uh, and that is one of the see the I think the the biggest selling point of this book is like you have taken some of the underutilized traditional methods and
Right. Mhm.
you have given uh, the the guidelines of using it under a practical context, which is
Mhm.
extremely valuable, or maybe you cannot put a price tag on such things. So that is one of, and just for this single most reason, the book is extremely valuable. And that is that is why I kind of strongly recommend this book to the people. This book is not just another a book on solar returns or annual predictive methods. So Anthony Lewis has written a book which is very just long time ago. And then with traditional predictive methods, Martin Ganston published a book
Right.
with Wessex Astrologers in 2019. It's a very good book. There's no doubt about it. It kind of deals with some of the historical portions, and then it gets on to practical purposes. But there are things that are not present in Ganston's book, and it's not to disrespect. It's a wonderful book. There is no doubt about it. And I also did an interview with Martin Ganston on that book, about the book. But I think it is important for us to kind of find out what is not written, and trying to kind of
Yeah.
put or throw some light on it. So in that way, I think you have done good work. Although there's been little work on traditional solar returns, I think you have just taken this to the next level in terms of.
No, you think so?
Yeah, no, really.
In a
So
way,
taken it. Yeah, surely you have taken it to the next level. And any author who's about to kind of write a book on traditional methods of annual predictive methods has to kind of pass this book or surpass this book and kind of take to another level. So you've already set the standards. So it's a little bit difficult for someone who's already in the process of writing, just like myself, although I've put it on hold. So you have posed a serious challenge. That is one thing. So about the monthly profections. So how far did you uh, how were you impressed about the idea of monthly profections, and how did you kind of arrive at a way of using monthly profections? Because it's not very difficult to find out how to use monthly profections, but to kind of uh, arrive at a sequential manner of where to kind of use the monthly profections and how to relate in the chart is really a different thing. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah,
annual profections are easy,
yeah,
and I've seen them working. So, okay, I said, if annual profections work, then surely the monthly profections work also.
right,
Because after all, imperfections, the basic principles, this is something that I stressed in the book right at the beginning when I write about annual perfections. It's that it's not one sign equals 1 year. That's not the fundamental principle, but it's one sign equals 1 month, because one sign is one solar month. But it's like a clock. So we have cycles of 12 solar months, and each cycle belongs to one sign. Therefore, one sign equals 1 year, just like a clock when you have hour and minute pointers. So when we do the full circle, the hour pointer points to the next hour. So in the case of perfections, when the cycle of 12 solar months, 12 signs is over, is concluded, then the perfection moves to the next sign. We have another cycle of 12 months, and so on. So monthly perfections are actually very natural because it's just solar months. But in practice, I found them impossible to use because you have so many options if you want to predict in which month the theme that's shown by the annual perfections will manifest, or the event will manifest. You just have too many choices because it can manifest in the first month, during the month of the sign of annual perfection. Then it can manifest in the sign where the Lord of the year is in. Then it can manifest in one of the two signs that are ruled, or in another sign that's ruled by the Lord of the year. So we have at least three options. So how to choose which of these three is going to do it? I don't hear you anymore.
No,
Oh
I
yeah,
was just
fine.
saying that's where you just bring in the use of the monthly ruler.
Yeah, and this is why I wanted um, to come to the technique that's done in the solar return. So I wanted to combine the profections within the solar return chart and then confirm this, what I found by perfecting, because in the solar return, the technique that I introduced is we perfect the moon in the solar return and
Right.
see how many signs it needs to travel in order to get um, to the significator of the event. So first we choose among a few candidates, we choose the significator uh, that's the most productive for the team that we are seeing uh, is unfolding. You know,
Right.
so and then when we do this, we go back to the natal chart and perform monthly perfections, and we use them only to confirm the month, because in the solar return we will have a few options. Sometimes it's going to be very clear and we will have only 1 month. So we go back to the natal chart and see if it's confirmed there by monthly perfections.
Right.
And that's it. But sometimes we will have 2 or 3 options. So we need to go to the natal chart and see in which month, the monthly perfection confirms what we've seen in the solar return, which of the months from the solar return gets confirmed. So
That's
it's like
good.
using the 2 monthly perfections in the natal chart and in the solar return
Solar return chart.
together.
Right. Okay. So it sounds very busy, but I'm sure if you start
It
working
sounds
with it,
busy. Yeah, it sounds
but
busy, but it's very simple.
yeah, when we start
Yeah.
working with it, it gets quite simple. So and then you move on to solar returns and then determining the month. So it's almost like these 3 chapters are interrelated, where you kind of
Mhm.
uh, set the conceptual basis of the book, and then you move on to the examples, which
Mhm.
are the other second portion. So I think I divide this book into 2 parts. One is the fundamental concepts and the second is practical
Yeah.
usage, so which is a good thing.
Mhm.
Uh, so um, and you have taken all the objective events of life. So I know you like to be objective as an astrologer. So it is a it's I mean you use those events that certainly will be or should be indicative in the chart
Yeah.
when you want to study some event.
Yeah.
So
When we learn such predictive techniques, this is what we should use,
yes,
objective events.
yes,
I also like subjective stuff, psychological stuff, but we cannot learn by that.
right.
It's too subjective. So we just need concrete events like childbirth, weddings,
Separations.
travels, you know.
So relationships and marriages, childbirth, illness, accidents, and surgeries,
Mhm.
milestones and turning points, and then you pack in a surprise called additional time lots.
Haha.
So let's. I mean, so let's. If do you want to share some specific thing uh, in any of those examples, or we just can talk about?
From the examples, uh, yes, I can just say that I came to a surprise because 13 out of 20 example charts had an important significator, either a ruler of the year or an important ruler in the solar return, um, combust or
Right.
retrograde. That, and there's another thing that somehow I forgot to write, but I'm sure that it will be noticeable. that it's often also conjunct or co-present with the North Node. So if something out of the norm is happening, for example, a wedding, childbirth, these are really events that are just special. The conjunctions with North Node are also there.
So you mean the conjunction North Node in the natal chart or solar returns?
In the solar return.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I'm talking about solar return only.
So the combust feature is also in solar return only.
Yeah. Combust, retrograde, or co-present with the North Node, that, or if they're not, so if it's not combust, if it's not retrograde, or with North Node, then it's at the angle,
Right.
And
Yeah, obviously.
usually, for marriages, there's something to do. Often it's like, I mean, a very interesting theme that I've seen is you have the first Lord and the seventh Lord conjunct together at the MC, in the year of marriage.
Sure. Right. That makes sense. Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's very simple. So, and additional time lords. So, do you want to talk about it, or do you want to
Yeah,
leave it as a
sure. Why
surprise
not?
package?
No, we can talk about it.
Yeah, the book is anyway out. So, can you just
Yeah.
draw a verbal outline of your new thing that you've?
Yeah. There are two innovations in the book. I will go back a little bit to annual perfections first.
Sure.
This is an idea that I got from astrologer from Pakistan. His name
Right.
is Muhammad Imran. He seems to be working with perfection, studying Nadi Jyotish.
Right.
And what he introduced is, he said that every 12-year cycle is not the same, although zodiacally it is. But life doesn't repeat.
Sure.
Every 12 years exactly the same. And of course, one answer would be, sure, because the solar returns change, the solar returns are not the same. Yes, but it's also handy to have something that's more of a snapshot technique that enables us to differentiate between the different 12-year cycles. And what he proposed is the use of the so-called cycle rulers. So we assign a planet to each of the 12-year cycles, but in the Chaldean order.
Right.
In the ascending Chaldean order, starting with the moon, ending with Saturn. So the moon rules for the first 12 years, the first cycle of 12 years, the first perfection cycle. Then Mercury rules the next one, and Venus rules the next one, and Sun rules the next one, and Mars next one, and Jupiter next one, and the last one, Saturn. And if the person lives past Saturn's cycle, again, the ruler is the moon.
Right.
And these 12-year cycles, the ruler of these 12-year cycles correspond quite nicely to the development of human life.
Sure. Right.
Just natural periods of life. So in India, you would say it's a Naisargika dasha, a natural
Right.
dasha. Yeah.
Sure.
So this is one innovation. And immediately when I started to do this, things were falling into place, So in my opinion, it's important to add these cycle rulers.
Sure.
And in the examples, it's also quite clear that they do play an important role, and they set up a context,
Yeah, I think that's what I was about to say. It kind of sets up the context, so it kind of makes it easier for an astrologer in terms of what to kind of anticipate or expect during a specific period based upon the profection lords and the
Right.
solar revolutions.
Mhm.
So that's right. So
Yeah, this is one. And then the other one was my experiment, um, which I did before I found out about these cycle rulers. I wanted to create a Time Lord system that's also based on the principle of one sign equals 1 year.
sure,
And this is something that I have already found in the system of Jaimini, the Indian system,
right.
because there all of his dashas are sign based.
Yeah, sure.
It's all one sign equals 1 year. Um, and what he does for some dashas counts the distance of the lord of the sign. So how far the lord of the sign is, that many years the sign rules.
Right.
But for my purpose, I wanted to have the rulership of a planet, not the sign.
Sure.
And I also wanted this Time Lord to be dependent on the principle of sect, whether it's the day
That makes
chart
sense.
or night chart. So, and there's another sect-related idea that's underutilized, and these are the nocturnal and diurnal domiciles.
Yeah, science. Yeah.
We know that every planet has two domiciles. Just sun and moon have one,
One.
but other ones have diurnal
Sure.
and nocturnal homes.
Right. That's right.
And really, how much do we use this?
It's very common for Nadi astrologers who use Vimshotri in
Uh-huh.
India, but I don't see this very uh, widely used in the West, even in the traditional satis.
Right. So after quite a bit of experimentation, I came to this technique where you see how far you start with sun or moon, with one of the lights.
Right.
Usually the sect light, but there are exceptions. And I also explain the rules how to select what I call the initiator. So you select either sun
Initiator.
or moon, yeah.
I don't know.
Um, and then you count how many signs away it is from its domicile.
Right.
And then you proceed again in the ascending Chaldean order, and you count, for example, first you have the sun, if it's the day chart, and the next in the ascendant order will be Mars. And now you count how far Mars is from Aries, which is the diurnal domicile,
Right.
and how far Jupiter is from Sagittarius, and how far Saturn is from Aquarius, and so on. And then again to the moon and up. And then you just create a table with the amount of years. So it's an
Sure.
individualized Time Lord technique, but still a bit natural because the order is the same
Sure.
for everyone. It just starts differently either from the sun or the moon.
Right. Based upon the sect.
Yeah.
So one more important small little thing about the book is like you've used bold for some of the key phrases in the book,
Aha.
which is not very common for many.
It's not common for books, it's more like
No, I think
may-
so the thing is like the book acts as a guide as well when you
yeah,
kind of do something like this. So it's basically a
it's a
practical
manual
book.
basically,
Yes.
it's like a manual. So I just wanted to, write stuff in bold, when it's important. And because at the beginning of each example, I write down the expected significators, so which of the factors are we expecting to see for marriage in this horoscope?
Right.
And when, for example, the third house is something that was coming up, continuously for weddings, because
Right.
it's the ninth from the seventh.
Sure.
And I just wrote it bold, because so the Lord of the Year is in the third house, so it's bold, just to emphasize it, emphasize the important stuff.
Sure. So I think that pretty much brings us towards the end of the discussion.
Mm.
One thing that I wanted to mention is um, everyone can purchase the book through Amazon, and one of the most important things is like it's not just about purchasing the book, but if you really like the book, I think you should leave a review on Amazon, because it
Oh
really
yes,
helps.
please.
So it really helps because it's not just about liking the book, but it's about uh, sharing the feedback about how the book is. So I think that kind of besides promoting the sales, which is, no one is going to become a billionaire by writing the book. It's not a it's
Yeah,
not going to be a Dan Brown bestseller or something. But I
yeah.
think inside the astrological community, I think this book is a very important contribution uh, in furthering the the ideas of traditional astrology. And one more important thing is this book has a natural blend of Eastern and Western astrology,
Mhm.
uh, which is another reason why this is a very significant contribution. In the era of polarization and differentiation, I think this book kind of, not just
Mhm.
this, but few other books, but currently, I think this book kind of bridges the gap uh, very well. And so please leave a review on Amazon, but before leaving a review on Amazon, purchase the book and read it, and then don't forget to leave a review. So, and you can find out more information about Rok on, his website is rokkoritnikastrologer.com. So if you want to say anything else,
I don't know. Yeah, just
just buy the
enjoy the
book.
book. Buy the book.
Yeah, yeah, buy the book, read the book, enjoy the book. Yeah. So uh, thank you so much, and that pretty
Thank you,
much
Ashwin.
closes. Thank you.